This is not getting discussed on the mainstream media. Not only are they wrong legally, but the fact that they would do this is outrageous. This is an overreaction and really nonsense. How would you react if this was your son or your daughter? It's the offense of knowing the truth. It's the offense of having an alternate worldview. Saying God bless you to someone is not a violation of the law. Hi, everybody. Welcome to the broadcast. Obviously, big news. The President of the United States, for the first time that any president has ever done this, has called for a return of the 1967 borders, has called Israel an occupying force, the occupiers, occupied territories. Didn't say it once, didn't say it twice, said it 3 times, called for the borders to be 67, and then says the issue of Jerusalem is on the table. Well, what does that mean? I'll tell you what it means. The president's going to call for an internationalized, divided Jerusalem where Israel gives up the old city. That's what he's talking about. Our phone lines are open for you. Your reaction to the president's plan, especially as Benjamin Netanyahu, the prime minister of Israel, is in Washington, D.C. right now. Here's the number, 877-989-2255, to sign on to a very important petition that I'm going to be talking about. And that petition is very clear. It says to the President of the United States, no dividing Jerusalem. Do not call Israel an occupying force. Do not, under any circumstance, and I want to be very clear on this, do not demand a return to these 67 borders. And Mr. President, how can you expect the Israeli government to negotiate with Hamas, who's calling for their destruction? He says, well, that's a troubling and difficult issue. Troubling and difficult? It's impossible. Again, we want you to sign on to this very important petition that we're having our team take to Israel, to government leaders there, and to the White House. 877-989-2255. That's 1-877-989-2255. In the studio with me is David French. He's a senior counsel for the American Center for Law and Justice. En route, by the way, to Israel, Skip Ash, who was on the broadcast yesterday, has left. He's probably landing in the next couple of hours. David and Stuart Roth are going on Sunday. I am going to our offices in Washington to deal with the issues there. David, this is an incredible speech. We've made an analysis of it. It's unbelievable what the president has said here.
It really is. And, you know, he waxes eloquent about this notion about Palestinian humiliation and occupation. Palestinian independence was destroyed by Arab armies in 1948, and Palestinian independence is threatened by Palestinians every time they fire rockets at Israeli civilians. That's the real issue here.
Which, by the way, the president barely mentions, but he calls Israel an occupying force, folks, 3 different times. Now, I've got maps of these borders I'm going to show you when I get back. By the way, talking about guests, we've got the Deputy Speaker of the Israeli Knesset going to be joining us in the next segment of the broadcast, Danny Danon. And you're going to want to let him know. By the way, when we get him on the phone, I want to make sure we've heard from at least 5,000 of you over the last couple of days now. So you go to your phones right now, sign that petition, so when we can have Danny Danon, the Deputy Speaker of the Knesset, on, we can tell him how many Americans disagree with the president and want to see a united Jerusalem. 877-989-2255 is that number. That's 1-877-989-2255. Now, we've got information posted at aclj.org. We've got a commentary that David drafted. It's up as well. We've got information galore on the website. But call now. Add your name, 877-989-2255. Back with more in a moment.
President Obama siding with the Palestinian Authority, turning his back on Israel. Unbelievable. President Obama calling Israel an occupying force, demanding that Israel revert to the 1967 borders, a move that would divide Jerusalem. What's worse, President Obama, by backing the Palestinian Authority, is backing Hamas, a terrorist organization that vows to eliminate Israel. This is not a pathway to peace. It's an assault against Israel, our most important ally. We're sending a message to President Obama. This anti-Israel tactic is unacceptable. Stand with the ACLJ in support of the nation of Israel and in opposition to President Obama's troubling new policy against Israel. Add your name to our petition now, and we'll send you 2 valuable resources: the Export DVD, a powerful look at the Middle East crisis, and a booklet on the growing threat of Sharia law. Tell President Obama it's time to stand with Israel. Call now, 1-877-989-2255 or online aclj.org.
I'm going to tell you right now, folks, that's the President of the United States. You know, I praised him when he did a good job with getting bin Laden. That was great. You know what? That was wonderful. So now the trades for that is going to be, we get bin Laden, we're now going to trade Israel's national security, which, by the way, trades our national security as well. Calling Israel an occupying force? I mean, think about that for a moment. Who uses language, the occupier? They use the same language like the Zionist regime. Oh, well, that makes sense, though, because you listen to the president's senior diplomatic advisor. This is going to get you going, Samantha Powers. She's the senior director of multilateral affairs for President Obama. Take a listen, soundbite 17.
I actually think in the Palestine-Israeli situation, investing, I think, more than sacrificing, literally billions of dollars not in servicing Israelis, military, but actually in investing in the new state of Palestine, in investing billions of dollars it would probably take also to support, I think, what will have to be a mammoth protection force, not of the old, Srebrenica kind or the Rwanda kind, but a meaningful military presence.
So realize what they're all talking about. Realize what the entire Obama administration is talking about here, folks. There's no denying it. They are talking about internationalizing, at best, Jerusalem, dividing it so that the Palestinian Authority can claim it as its capital. He's also talking about returning to the 67 borders, which gives Israel no defensive capability here. So we've got Danny Danone's going to be joining us in just a moment. In fact, he's on the air. But, folks, I want you to sign on to this petition letting the White House know, no, we're not dividing Jerusalem. No, not returning to the 67 borders. No, we're not negotiating with Hamas. Here's the number, 877-989-2255. That's 1-877-989-2255 or aclj.org. We need everybody participating. I told you when we are privileged to have with us on the phone right now from Israel, the Deputy Speaker of the Knesset, Danny Danone, a very good friend, someone that not only has been a great ally for America and a great ally for his constituents there in Israel, but I'll tell you, he's been a gracious host when we brought students over. We've got a group of students there right now on their way there this very week. And Danny, thanks for being with us. We appreciate you coming on.
Shalom, it is my pleasure, like usual, being with you, especially on those days that we need our true allies to work with us in order to protect Israel.
Danny, let me get your reaction. I know you've been in the news all day. I know you've got a busy day. You're on your cell phone talking to us, which we really appreciate. Your reaction to President Obama's speech and the return of the 67 borders, what was your reaction when you first heard that?
Well, before the speech, there were two sets of minds in Israel. Some people thought that President Obama is misinformed. He doesn't know what's happening in the Middle East, and some thought that he is biased against Israel. I think today it is very clear that President Obama is biased. He took a stand against Israel. He actually adapted all the demands of the Palestinians, and I think we have to face a new reality where you have a president in the White House who supports all the demands of the Palestinians, of the Arab states, and we have to tell him very clear, and I told it to the Prime Minister before he departed to Washington, tell him, I will not give up Jerusalem, and I will not create a state of terrorism in my backyard. I think Prime Minister Netanyahu will say to the president, but it will not be easy times for us.
You know, I've got up on the screen for our television audience, we're going to be showing some maps of what it was like in 1948 when Israel was declared a state, 1967, and now, and what will happen when you've got a return to the 67 borders. Danny, of course, you and I know this. You know it well. I've been there many, many times. We've been there. I've been with at your offices. A return to the 67 borders, you're talking about areas of Israel that would be less than 8 miles wide. You cannot defend Israel's security with the return to the 67 borders. Is that correct?
Israel will not be able to exist. What President Obama did, he actually adapted Yasser Arafat's phase plan, which the first phase was to return to the 48 borders, and the second phase is to eliminate Israel. And that's, God forbid, what will happen if we will accept Obama's plan. So I think what we should do, we should fight it strongly with the support of our allies in the U.S., and hopefully there will be a new president who will understand the reality differently. I think President Obama is not connected to what's happening in the Middle East. In one hand, he's sending the U.S. troops to eliminate Osama bin Laden, which was an excellent decision. But on the other hand, he's asking us to negotiate with the Hamas, to sit and have an accord with the Fatah and the Hamas. You cannot have an accord with Al-Qaeda and the Hamas. Either you fight them or you give in. The same way that the Americans chose to fight against Al-Qaeda, we have to fight against Hamas and not to give in.
Let me ask you last question, Danny. You mentioned this. How important is it right now for the Americans? We're on 950 radio stations from coast to coast on television all over the country, around the world, actually. How important is it for Americans to speak out to our administration, to President Obama right now in support of Israel? How critical is that?
It is crucial. It's a time when we test our friendship with our allies, because now what's happening in Israel, a lot of people who call to my office today say, what will we do when America is not behind us? I'm telling them, America is behind us. Maybe the American president is not behind us. So the more people will speak, the more congressmen, senators, governors will take a stand against this insane plan of Obama, it will give a boost and support to the Israelis who sit here, who will know that it is not the American people who are against us, that we have friendship, we have support. That's why I'm calling to all the listeners to be active now. This is the time to support Israel, to stand for Israel, and they will be blessed for doing so.
All right, Danny Danon, Deputy Speaker of the Knesset, member of the Knesset as well. Thanks for being with us as always, and I look forward to seeing you in Israel.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Well, folks, you heard the direct call to action here, and folks, I cannot say it any better than the Deputy Speaker of the Knesset. Again, let me tell you the difference between just talking about these issues and doing something about it. David French, Stuart Roth, Skip Ash, already en route. Skip's already en route to Israel. David and Stuart will be joining him in just a few days. I'm leaving our media center en route to Washington, D.C., working with our government affairs team there, coordinating a global effort. So we're not just talking about it, but you heard what Danny Danon just said. Israel needs American support right now to tell this administration we're not dividing Jerusalem. We're not going back to these 67 borders. I need everybody to go to your phones. By the way, when you do, I'm going to send you the DVD, the export, and this booklet on Sharia law. Here's the number, 877-989-2255. That's 1-877-989-2255. Everybody that's listening needs to say no to a divided Jerusalem. And David, interestingly here, no matter how you cut it, the president said, go back to the 67 borders, and now he's kind of saying, well, we'll let the Jerusalem issue kind of percolate, which means internationalization is, I'm sure, in the back of his mind. But I think what Danny Danon said is right. The administration, it's not naivete. They know exactly what they're doing here. This is what they want.
Well, it's almost like I'm getting a flashback to listening to my radical far-left professors from law school talk about the Middle East. I mean, this is a far-left vision that says if you appease the terrorists and that if you give them everything that they want, they'll go away. But you literally cannot give them everything that they want because they want your death, and you cannot give them that.
Well, the president acknowledges this, by the way, and he's got this statement about, he knows it's going to be difficult dealing with Hamas and Fatah, and that's going to be a point that the Israelis are going to have to deal with. Let me tell you what he plays. Let's play soundbite number 10. This shows you how this president's not naive. This is intentional action, folks. Listen to number 10.
Now, let me say this. Recognizing that negotiations need to begin with the issues of territory and security does not mean that it will be easy to come back to the table. In particular, the recent announcement of an agreement between Fatah and Hamas raises profound and legitimate questions for Israel.
I'm a lawyer. David's a lawyer. Profound and legitimate questions? No, you can't negotiate with someone. And for our television audience, I'm putting on the screen right now what Hamas's charter says, which is the calling for the destruction of the state of Israel. And I'm going to pull it right out of their charter so everybody on TV can see it. They're calling for the destruction of the state of Israel. And the president has the nerve to sound it raises profound and legitimate questions. No. We, under our law in the United States, David, cannot negotiate with terrorists. We can't give support to terrorists, which, by the way, $550 million of our taxpayer dollars is going to the Palestinian Authority, which right now is in partnership with a recognized terrorist organization, not just by the United States, but by the UN as well.
Oh, that's right. And under our practice, what happens with terrorists is we hit them with Predator drones. The SEAL teams visit them in the middle of the night. That's our practice with terrorists. Why are we imposing a double standard on Israel?
Oh, because it's profound and legitimate questions have been raised. I mean, this is these statements, folks, and we're playing it for you because this is how absurd they are. Let me play number 11 before we go to the break. Let's play soundbite number 11 again, the president.
How can one negotiate with a party that has shown itself unwilling to recognize your right to exist?
Then let me ask you this question, Mr. President. Why are you, the sentences before that, calling for a return to the 67 borders, calling Israel an occupying force? Let me keep going here. Not once, not twice, but 3 times. And then say, give up land for peace, basically is what you're saying. And their partner doesn't recognize your right to exist. Now, here's the problem. The president of the United States is calling for something that is logistically impossible, legally incorrect, and from a policy standpoint, absolutely dangerous for the future of our country. So here's what we want to do. We're going into a break. You just heard from Danny Danon. Our team's going to be meeting with Danny Danon in the next several days. I want to let him know that we've heard from 10,000 Americans in the next week, with the next weekend here. I need you to go to your phone, sign on this petition, tell the White House, know what? We're not calling Israel occupying forces. We're not going to call them the Zionist regime. We're not going to say that they should divide Jerusalem, and we're not going to go back to the 67 indefensible borders. Here's the number, 877-989-2255. That's 1-877-989-2255 or aclj.org. Call right now. Add your name to that petition, 877-989-2255. Back with more in a moment.
President Obama siding with the Palestinian Authority, turning his back on Israel. Unbelievable. President Obama calling Israel an occupying force, demanding that Israel revert to the 1967 borders, a move that would divide Jerusalem. What's worse, President Obama, by backing the Palestinian Authority, is backing Hamas, a terrorist organization that vows to eliminate Israel. This is not a pathway to peace, it's an assault against Israel, our most important ally. We're sending a message to President Obama. This anti-Israel tactic is unacceptable. Stand with the ACLJ in support of the nation of Israel and in opposition to President Obama's troubling new policy against Israel. Add your name to our petition now, and we'll send you 2 valuable resources: the Export DVD, a powerful look at the Middle East crisis, and a booklet on the growing threat of Sharia law. Tell President Obama it's time to stand with Israel. Call now, 1-877-989-2255 or online aclj.org.
How significant is the conflict with radical Islam?
Radical Islam intends that all of us live under Sharia law. The enemy is radical Islam.
If Iran gets nuclear weapons, Saudi Arabia will, Egypt will, Turkey, perhaps others.
The moment the Iranians have nuclear weapons, they have a nuclear umbrella over their international terrorist capability.
That is a formula for insecurity.
And I'm telling you, target number 1 is Israel. The Israelis cannot abide that. It is truly an existential threat.
Peace can reign only when everybody comes under the umbrella of Islam.
These 40,000 rockets and missiles on the border with Lebanon could, be sprung and fired against Israel.
The more we have nuclear proliferation in the world, the more the risks are that there will be the availability of nuclear devices, the lethality of which is mind-boggling.
On every September 11, they fire rockets into Israel. Why? To commemorate 9/11.
A proposal to build a mosque and Islamic cultural center near Ground Zero generating a lot of heat at a hearing in New York City. Opponents want to give landmark status to the 150-year-old building, which would essentially prevent the mosque and center from being built.
They don't want to just take this building and turn it into a mosque. They want a memorial. They want a monument.
A monument, a tower of triumph. That's what they want to build, called Cordoba.
Cordoba is the symbol of them conquering Christian land. I mean, that was not by accident.
They want America to be a Muslim nation.
This is a march of Sharia through our institutions. And what they're trying to do is see how far they can get before there's pushback. And as long as there's not pushback, they'll keep pushing.
If the mosque were allowed to go up and did go up, what symbol does that send?
We might as well just throw the Constitution away.
If we care about remaining the United States that I think we want to remain, we have to pay very close attention to this.
The war on terror is a war that has to be won every day.
Let me play soundbite number 13 from the President of the United States. He's calling for a phased withdrawal of Israel from Palestinian territory. Take a listen.
The full and phased withdrawal of Israeli military forces should be coordinated with the assumption of Palestinian security responsibility in a sovereign, non-militarized state.
Controlled by Hamas. That's what he should have finished the rest of the sentence with. Controlled by Hamas. Because who is controlling the Palestinian state? Hamas is controlling the Palestinian state. David, you went to Iraq to fight the terrorists, so now we're inviting the terrorists to the table.
The jihadists, they don't share power, they take power. In Iraq, when things were even at their worst in 04, 05, 06, we never said, okay, let's bring in al-Qaeda into a unity government with the Iraqi government. No, we said we're going to defeat al-Qaeda, and we did. It is possible to defeat terrorism. You can't appease it. You have to defeat it.
We've heard from, just on the radio today, almost 1,500 of you in the last 15, 17 minutes. We want to get to 10,000 by this weekend, and I believe we're going to be able to do it with the replays. Because when David and Stuart and Skip are in our office in Jerusalem, I want to let the Israeli government officials that are in Israel know that we've heard from at least 10,000 of you. And I'll be in Washington and letting them know that there. So, again, if you've not signed on to this petition to support Israel, to call for an end to this discussion about dividing Jerusalem and a return to the 67 borders, we'll send you the booklet on Sharia law as well as the export DVD, which, by the way, a lot of the people you're hearing from are in this DVD, on this DVD, our full-length feature film. Here's the number. Sign it now. Stand for Israel. This is, you heard from Danny Danone. This is the time to do it. 877-989-2255. That's 1-877-989-2255 or aclj.org. But again, folks, the number's 877-989-2255. We're going to go right back to our phones. James calling from Texas. He's on line 1. Hi, James.
How are you doing?
Good.
I'd like to know when America is going to learn the lesson that we cannot buy democracy. Everything that we give them, they turn around and use against us.
Well, let me put it on hyperdrive for you. We're giving the Pakistanis $3.5 billion. We give the Egyptians billions of dollars. By the way, we've also trained the Egyptian army, which is now going to be controlled by the and everybody. By the way, you remember when I said the Muslim Brotherhood is going to be controlling Egypt, and I got all that press criticism? Oh, you're assuming all this. Now everybody, including MSNBC last night, is saying, oh, yes, it's possible that the Muslim Brotherhood is the most organized political force in Egypt, and they may be controlling the government, as if Hezbollah's already controlling Lebanon, Hamas is going to control the Palestinian Authority, and we're going to have the Muslim Brotherhood controlling Egypt. So much for the Arab Spring.
Well, and then Obama has the nerve to go and compare these people to American revolutionaries at the end of his speech, which was just astounding to me. I almost fell out of my chair, comparing the Muslim Brotherhood animated rebellion in many of these countries to the American Revolution. And even doing it in the section where he's talking about the Palestinian actions against Israel, it's astounding.
We actually have the soundbite from the president comparing what's going on in the Arab world to the American Revolution. I'm going to play part of it for you, number 15.
For the American people, the scenes of upheaval in the region may be unsettling. But the forces driving it are not unfamiliar. Our own nation was founded through a rebellion against an empire.
Oh, okay, true. Right. It's called the Revolutionary War. We knew who the revolutionaries were, however. Thomas Jefferson, George Washington, James Madison, John Adams. You want me? I could keep going with Patrick Henry. So here's a difference. Can you tell me who are the revolutionaries in Egypt that we really know? The president gives one line to the Coptic Christian persecution, which is incredible going on there right now. One line. That's all he gives. So we don't even know who these revolutionaries we're supporting are.
Well, even the liberal journalists now are saying that the next likely leader of Egypt is a known anti-Semite who became popular in Egypt by stoking up anti-Jewish hatred. So we're looking at a situation to use this phrase, where is the Egyptian Thomas Jefferson? Where is the Libyan Thomas Jefferson? You're not going to find them.
Well, I'll tell you what, but look, here's the plight. I mean, here's the plight. Let me play soundbite number three, and the Israelis, I guess, are now the new British Empire. Play soundbite 3.
For Palestinians, it has meant suffering the humiliation of occupation and never living in a nation of their own.
All right, well, first of all, okay, they had a lot of nations of their own. It's called the entire Arab world, okay? We're talking about a country that I can go from top to bottom in 6 hours, and if you go back to the 67 borders, I could go across the country in about 22 minutes, okay? So, calling Israel is not exactly an empire, but they are calling it an occupying force. Folks, and I want to be very clear about this, utilizing the language occupying force sent the radicals praising in the street, because that's what they call Israel, the occupier, the Zionist occupying regime. And the president uses exactly what Danny Danone said, the words of Yasser Arafat. We're going right back to the phones. Bruce is calling from New York on line 2. Hi, Bruce.
Hi.
Yes, you're on the air.
Okay. In my humble opinion, the handwriting is on the wall, Jay. Obama is just not into Israel.
That's an understatement, okay? Let me jump right in there. We believe that. Let me play soundbite number 5. I'm playing all these soundbites, folks, because you need to be educated. Listen to number 5.
We believe the borders of Israel and Palestine should be based on the 1967 lines with mutually agreed swaps.
Yeah, swaps. By the way, what's he going to swap? Does anybody figure what the swap's going to be? Swap what? We're going to get. That means the Golan Heights. I've got a map, and we'll show it for our TV audience. We'll have a map up on the screen. But the Golan Heights, that means you've got now Syria and Lebanon impacting your borders because you're going to get rid of the Golan Heights. You give up Jerusalem. The border, and go back to the 67 boundaries, the width of Israel is about two widths of my pen. I mean, it's ridiculous. And this is what the president's calling for, which sounds absurd, but the reality is, and I think we've got to be really clear about this, David, Israel's national security, you're about to go over there in just a few days, is really under the gun right now in a way I don't think they envision. We're waiting to hear what the president and Bibi Netanyahu say. That's going to be a lot of political talk, but this is a real problem.
Oh, absolutely. Why is Israel in the West Bank now? It's because there were massive Arab armies that were there threatening its existence. Israel had to launch an attack to save itself. And they're wanting to move back to the position where Israel had to launch attacks to save its very existence. Militarily, it's an untenable situation, as anyone with any military experience will tell you.
All right, here's what we're going to do, folks. Let me tell you exactly what we're doing on the military front. We've sent over, David's going over, who is a captain in the United States Army. Skip Ash is retired. He's a colonel from the United States Army. David Benjamin, who heads up our legal efforts in Israel, is a judge advocate general colonel in the Israeli Defense Forces. Rami Levy, counsel general and director general for the ACLJ's office in Jerusalem, not only was an ambassador for the state of Israel, he was also an Israeli Defense Force officer. So our military might at the ACLJ is being put to use here. And fortunately, a lot of them are government, either lawyers or government affairs trained. So we are uniquely positioned here, and that's exactly what we're doing. So we've got a team deployed. I'll be in Washington next week dealing with it there. Prime Minister Netanyahu is going to be in D.C. I'm going to be meeting with either him or his staff while I'm up there. So I will let you know exactly how that comes out. But we need to send a message to the Prime Minister that don't listen to what the President is saying and how that relates to the position of the American people, because by and large, the American people do not support a return to the 67 borders, do not support a divided Jerusalem, do not support calling Israel an occupying force, and do not support negotiations with an organization called Hamas that's calling for your destruction. So here's what I'd like you to do. I'd like you to go to your phones right now, and I need everybody to do this. Go to your phones. Here's the number. Sign up to that petition. It's going to these government officials and to the White House. I'll send you the DVD, the export, and the Sharia law booklet as well. 877-989-2255. Now, I need everybody to do this. Do it today or through the weekend. 877-989-2255, folks. It's critical we hear from you. Sign that petition now. 877-989-2255 or aclj.org.
President Obama siding with the Palestinian Authority, turning his back on Israel. Unbelievable. President Obama calling Israel an occupying force, demanding that Israel revert to the 1967 borders, a move that would divide Jerusalem. What's worse, President Obama, by backing the Palestinian Authority, is backing Hamas, a terrorist organization that vows to eliminate Israel. This is not a pathway to peace, it's an assault against Israel, our most important ally. We're sending a message to President Obama. This anti-Israel tactic is unacceptable. Stand with the ACLJ in support of the nation of Israel and in opposition to President Obama's troubling new policy against Israel. Add your name to our petition now, and we'll send you two valuable resources: the Export DVD, a powerful look at the Middle East crisis, and a booklet on the growing threat of Sharia law. Tell President Obama it's time to stand with Israel. Call now, 1-877-989-2255 or online aclj.org.